Alright, so though I enjoyed The Flash, I think that there are definitely issues with the movie as a whole. Though I think that the second act works really well, where things start to fall apart is towards the end of the film. Watching the battle against Zod should feel like it's a big moment, but something about it just seems to fall flat. Michael Shannon has since come out and said that he didn't find the film that fulfilling, and I feel this is something we can feel as we watch the film too. Now, upon thinking about it, I actually realized that Zod's very similar to Thanos in Endgame, but I think the latter works well, whereas this one doesn't. Throughout the video, we're going to be going through all the similarities that the pair share story-wise and saying why one worked whilst the other didn't. Full spoilers ahead, so if you haven't checked it out, then I highly recommend that you check out now. If you enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for videos like this every day. With that out of the way, huge thank you for clicking this. I'm your host Paul, now let's dive into it. Now, as I touched upon before, both actually share a lot of similarities, and when I talk about how the final two acts work, I think you'll see them too. Both films center around people traveling back in time, and this allows an old threat to become a brand new one. Both villains don't interact with the hero until that final act, and both at one point beat the heroes that they're facing. The heroes have to do something crazy in order to beat the villain, and two legacy characters die as things are closing out. Batman dies in Flash, whereas it's Tony out in Endgame, and this is used to add some emotion to the film. Now, Thanos in Endgame works, whereas I feel like Zod just falls slightly short, and when we get into it, hopefully you'll see why that's the case. Now, the first criticism I have is that Zod doesn't really up the stakes, and instead when he comes back, they simply stay the same. In Endgame, we watched as the heroes going back in time gave Thanos the new knowledge that his prior plan had failed. Thus, when he came back to the future, he'd up the stakes even more and was now going to wipe out all of the universe entirely. He destroyed the time machine, had planted his daughter in the group, and also had the potential to get the stones back. On the opposite side of this, Zod's mission still stays the same, and what he wants to do is terraform the planet. This is something we've already seen in Man of Steel, and thus the threat they're facing feels like it's been lessened. In the case of Thanos, you feel the instant regret the heroes do, because in trying to save the universe, they've created something worse. Had they left things alone, then things wouldn't be on the knife's edge like this, whereas with Zod, it's something we've already seen fail. Now, we don't know it's a fixed point on a first watch, but going into that battle, it makes it feel less threatening. Now, in The Flash, what they do is reveal that he's killed Kal-El, and thus the odds are slightly against the heroes due to him no longer being there. However, Supergirl has all the same power set that he did, and there's two versions of the Flash running around out there as well. Thus, we don't really feel the danger that we should, whereas with Thanos, you get more of the threat. Having not experienced this before, we don't know what to expect, whereas the Man of Steel battle's 10 years old now. Now, the next plot point they share is that they both beat the heroes, and at this point, the heroes have to step it up. In Endgame, we get the big portal scene where everyone comes together, and this is probably one of the strongest scenes in the MCU. It shows the heroes coming together as one united front and facing down against the biggest villain that they've ever faced. It really feels like a triumphant moment, as these are people we watch die, and thus them coming back hits us on several levels for several different reasons. Not only are we happy to see them back, but we're excited to see what's next, and they then pay it off with the Avengers Assemble line. Now, what happens in The Flash is Barry goes back in time and he tries to kill Zod by turning back the clock. Now, this is slightly lessened as it takes away the stakes because we feel like Barry can just repeat this till he wins. Now, obviously in the movie, as we said, we learn this isn't the case and that Zod's victory is seen as a fixed point. A version of Barry goes back until it destroys him as a person, and thus he loses himself in trying to change the past. Now, in these scenes, we get the death of a beloved character, which comes in the form of Bruce and Tony Stark. We watch Keaton die twice, which I feel robs us of the emotion because we're watching something happen that we know just can be changed. Plus, we have the weird emotion of Barry just saying, no, and his sacrifice means nothing the two times that he does it. On the second one, the giant Kryptonian's knocked down, but he gets back up, so again it leads nowhere. On the other side of this, Tony actually kills the bad guy and takes out all his forces, which costs the guy his life. The sacrifice feels more impactful because it actually means something, and thus his final act has weight to it, whereas The Flash doesn't. Now, beyond this, there's also the two ways the scenes go, which leaves one feeling meaningful, whereas the other's not. In Endgame, we watch Thanos being defeated, whereas in The Flash, we don't see what happens. His death's never shown on screen, we never get a final fight, and in the end he's simply erased by the timeline changing. It robs us of the payoff that we should get in the third act, and we never get that fist pump moment when we see that he's brought down. Now in the Flashpoint comic, they did something with the third act villain that took the opposite approach and allowed us to get a cheer moment. So in Flashpoint, things descended into war that, just like the movie, was gonna destroy the planet. When all hope seemed lost, we learned what was going on and why the world itself had ended up this way. Now, for better or worse, Flashpoint didn't tell us Barry had travelled back in time, and instead he just woke up to find that the world had changed. The mystery of the entire thing was what had made it alter, and clues of the Reverse Flash were seen throughout the work. This made us think that it was him who changed things, and he showed up at the end to reveal the actual truth. Very much like a third act villain, he came out of nowhere and told Barry that he was the one who actually changed the timeline. Now the Flash lets us know from the off that it's Barry who altered things, so this reveal that comes at the end can't be given how it is. However, I don't think that the mystery would have worked all that well in general anyway, because we've had it in that and the TV show as well. However, what happens next is something that was missing from the Flash, and the Reverse Flash is shot in the head from behind by Batman. It saves Barry's life and also makes Batman feel important, whereas we don't get that moment happening with Zod. Now, I know some of you probably think if he'd done that then they'd not need to travel back, but even in defeating him, the world still started ending. The real moment that broke everything was Barry saving his mother, which caused Outlander and Themyscira to go head to head with each other. Because of this, he realised he still had to go back and change things in the past, and I think that they could have somehow worked this into Flash. They could have had that being the breaking point, whereas in the case of this, Barry only goes back because he can't defeat Zod. I think having Zod die off screen does a real disservice to the movie, and I have the same problem with how Ben Affleck's taken too. These characters don't really feel like they get any finality, they're just wiped out with Barry changing things in time. Now like I said, I like The Flash, but I think a couple of changes could have made the final act way better. I gave the film a good review, but comparing it to how Endgame handles its returning villains, I feel that it fails in comparison. Sure, the focus is given to Barry more than the bad guy, but just a couple of tweaks could have made Zod feel like a bigger threat. Instead, we have most of the complaints about that, and even Michael Shannon saying he didn't enjoy it. So in summary, if you're ever writing a movie or want to make it so your surprise legacy villain's impactful, then I've made a list of what you need to do. Firstly, up the stakes so that the villain feels like they're infinitely more dangerous than the threat that's been handled before. Have them beat the heroes like both these characters do. I've been slagging them off, but I did like that the Flash did that, and that takes us to the next steps. And next, have the heroes step it up, but keep this all connected to the fight itself. People want to see the villain being defeated, and that's where things should remain like how they handled it in Flashpoint. If you're sacrificing legacy characters, then have them beat the villain so their death feels meaningful, instead of having it wiped to the side by it not going anywhere. Give us a moment in which the threat's taken out, and if you have to go beyond that, at least let us feel the victory. Otherwise, you might end up with a film that feels like it's a bit of a downer, where good people die for nothing, and we get stuck with George Clooney. I'm just kidding you, I liked it, I genuinely did. I just think a couple of tweaks could have made these moments go from good to going into great. It would give us a better film beyond what we got, in my opinion, and just make those scenes with Zod feel even better than they are. Anyway, let us know your thoughts below, and if you prefer the way they handled Zod, then I'd love to hear your point of view too. Remember, it's all comic book movies, and we talk about this stuff because we're passionate and not because we hate it, so if you love it, mate, I'd love to hear why. Now, hopefully I see you on the next one, and if you want to support the channel for as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below. As a thank you, you'll get early access to videos every week, and it goes towards helping videos like this get made. We also have our merch store over at zeroedition.com, which sells lots of nerdy inspired t-shirts, hats and more. We've just launched a Secret Invasion / Pulp Fiction inspired shirt, so if you want to head over there and help us out, then the link's in the description. Now if you want something else to watch, we've been covering Secret Invasion itself, so if you're interested in that show, then go and check them out. Personally, I'm loving it, got lots of theories about what's going on, so definitely head over there right after this. But out of the way, huge thank you for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.